So, there's a game that, for almost 5 years, has consumed the vast majority of my brain cells. And because of this, I recently decided to cave into temptation and make this game everyone else's problem. But which game am I talking about? Last year, I made a poll asking people which game I should tackle next in my Chamomile Yaps About Character Design series, and the winning game by an overwhelming margin was Arknights. A lot of fellow Doktas here, I see. I'm glad this game won the poll because this means I get to talk at length about the character designs for a game that I enjoy. In other words, prepare to be sick of me. Arknights is a mobile tower defense game developed and released in mainland China by Hypergriff on May 1st, 2019. This release was followed by the Korean, Japanese, and English servers on January 16th, 2020 courtesy of Yostar, and the traditional Chinese server was launched on June 9th, 2020. First published by Longcheng and then by Griffline. A spin-off title, Arknights Endfield, was released on January 22nd, 2026, but I'm just gonna talk about the OG Arknights here, since I want to give both entries the proper attention they deserve. Notable for its blending of tower defense and tactical role-playing elements, Arknights is set in the world of Terra, which at a glance resembles Earth. However, there are multiple things that set Terra apart, including natural disasters that are also harbingers for a terminal illness known as erypathy, a cohesive blend of cyberpunk and fantastical environments, and a wide array of humanoid/anthropomorphic races with animal-like traits. Of course, the lore goes much deeper than this, but no spoilers. And while Arknights isn't the first title to feature characters with animal traits and certainly won't be the last, I want to mention that it was a point of inspiration for the development of my own webcomic because of this. But I'm getting sidetracked. However, this also brings me to the topic of today's video, because the things that make the character design so appealing don't stop here. There are a lot of other factors that tie everything together like concepts, use of color, silhouettes, and more. And we need to do a deep dive to understand what makes the designs of Arknights the designs of Arknights. As with previous installments in this little series, I'll be putting my primary focus on the playable characters and their default designs to save time. But I may also talk about some of the NPCs if the appropriate context arises. On the other hand, I'm not sure if I've signed myself up for disaster, as there are more than 300 playable characters in the game. It's fine. It's fine. But in the event that I miss your faves because of this, I'm sorry. Don't bully me, please. Anyhow, if you're new here and you want to see me yap about the game that has consumed my brain cells, then make sure to like and subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, then welcome back to Rhode Island. Wait, hold on a second, that's not right. Either way, strap your butts in because here we go. Let's start with the concepts of both the individual designs and the environment. As I mentioned in the intro, the locales of Terra range widely in aesthetics, from the modernistic cities of Victoria and Siracusa, to the more dystopian Ursus, to the archaic environs of Sami, to the gothic/classical adjacent feel of Lytanian. Then you have the nomadic cities, which are basically cities on wheels, engineered to avoid the natural disasters known as catastrophes. And by some miracle of innovation, or maybe just sorcery, it works. But the variety doesn't end here, as the nations of Terra have their own cultures and traditions that inform the designs of the characters, some of which are drawn from the real world. For example, Kazimierz, Terra's analogy to Poland, is a confederation of chivalric orders with military and knightly traditions. It's even known as the land of knights and commerce, and their head of state is literally called the Grand Knight. To this end, many of the characters from or associated with Kazimierz have designs that are reminiscent of medieval knights with some futuristic flair thrown in. Proviso is one of several notable exceptions to the rule, but for her it makes sense. She's not a knight, she's a legal advisor. Yan draws influence from Tang and Ming Dynasty China, though influences for the designs of the Yanese characters seem to stretch across multiple dynasties, as can be seen with Shu, whose outfit seems to resemble Song Dynasty Hanfu, the traditional styles of Han Chinese clothing that have been worn for millennia. Notably, multiple characters wear garments with a yoran closure, where the garment overlaps in the front and closes on the wearer's right side. This style of closure originated in the Shang Dynasty and is an important symbol of the Han Chinese ethnicity, though several other countries such as Korea, Vietnam, and Japan have since adopted it. Some countries are more of a mixed bag than others in that they draw influence from multiple real-world countries. One nation that falls into this category is Kerag, which is based on the mountainous regions of both Europe and Asia, and it's because of this that you'll see Keragian characters and NPCs wearing outfits with Norwegian, Tibetan, and Bhutanese influence. A character's design concept can also be informed by the faction they represent. And since we're talking about factions, let's take a look at Rhode Island. Not again. Let's take a look at Rhodes Island and its leader, Amiya, who is also the game's poster girl and mascot. Amiya wears an oversized coat that is implied in-game to have previously belonged to someone else, and the shade of blue associated with Rhodes Island can be seen on the lapels of her coat and the stitching and the cuffs of her sleeves. But we'll get to the usage of color in a bit. Amiya also has 2 other distinct designs for her other class branches. I don't know how much I can give away without spoilers, but all 3 of her base designs signify her evolution as the leader of Rhodes Island and the greater role she has in the game's narrative. Also, Guard Amiya has a new skin, and it's gorgeous and immaculate and stunning and iconic. 10 out of 10. I love it. Variations of the Rhodes Island uniform are also worn by both lower rarity and higher rarity operators, the former of which include Hibiscus, Beagle, and Cruz, and the latter of which include Rosemontis and Professional Office Chair Racer logos. Well, playable logos anyway. With the exception of most of the collab characters and the playable robots, the denizens of Terra have the traits of either animals that can be found on Earth or the traits of mythological creatures. Operators based on real-world animals include Viviana and Czerny, who are both based on the fallow deer, Dorothy, who is based on the jerboa, Irene, who is based on the leech's storm petrel, Carnelian, Beeswax, and Lessing, who are all based on the argali, and Lumen, who is based on the guppy. Though because of his mostly blue color scheme and the spots of orange throughout, I would personally associate him with a blue cobra guppy. Operators who are based on mythological creatures include Arketo and Heliger, who are based on the hippogriff, Gracebearer and Holheak, who are based on the Mayan serpent deity Kukulkan, Fiametta, who is based on the phoenix, Utage, who is based on the bnuuy, one of the yokai from Japanese mythology, and Record Keeper, who is based on the Diting, a divine mythical creature in Chinese Buddhist mythology. Additionally, there are entire races based on mythological creatures such as the Draco, Vivre, and Lung, all of which are based on variations of the dragon, the Qilin, who are based on the Qilin in Chinese mythology, and the Anasa, who are based on the Asuras, Rakshasas, and Yakshas in Hindu Buddhist mythology. Also in this category are the Sarkas and the Sancta, who are based on demons and angels respectively, though the former race is split into several subgroups including the gargoyles, banshees, and vampires. Individual characters can embody certain concepts or have elements of their design that may point to another profession outside of their operator status. Golden Glow is a hairstylist, and you can see a pair of scissors and multiple objects that look like hair clips tucked into the pocket of her skirt. Dusk's concept has to do with painting, and according to the game's wiki, she represents the 4 treasures of the study, the expression used to denote the brush, ink, paper, and inkstone used in Chinese calligraphy. Tippy is a reference to the 1963 horror film The Birds, in that she's named after actress Tippi Hedren, who starred in the film. She's a Liberi, Terra's designated bird-like race, and she's a horror film aficionado with knowledge in almost all facets of filmmaking. For some characters, though, you may have to put them side by side with another character to get the full scope of their concept. Phantom, for example, is a walking, talking Phantom of the Opera reference. You may have noticed that the mask he has vaguely resembles the one worn by Eric, the title character of the Phantom of the Opera. And if that wasn't enough, Phantom's companion Miss Christine is named after Christine Daae, the book's main heroine. His alternate version Tragodia takes somewhat of a departure from his original concept, as he primarily draws influence from Dionysus, the Greek god of wine, festivities, and theater. Notably, he also has an ivy wreath and staff. Both items were also associated with Dionysus. Astasia and Astjani, aka Elena, come from a family with a long history of astrological studies and represent the dichotomy between superstition and science. Astasia, who chose to follow in her family's footsteps, doesn't have any explicit space/star motifs directly on her outfit, but the astrolabe she carries has a 4-pointed star near the base. By contrast, Astjani's design veers more towards the science aspect, and the goggles and radio she has are nods to this. Not too surprising, considering she was so done with her family's traditions that she chose to break away from astrology and change her first name when she went off to college. I love that for her. Reed and Ablana are another pair of sisters with contrasting concepts. In their case, they have a life/death thing going on between them concept-wise. Of the 2 sisters, Reed, more specifically her alternate version Reed the Flame Shadow, represents the concept of life, and she has a lot of floral motifs on her coat and her left stocking. She also wears flowers in her hair. While flowers can have a wide range of meanings and symbolism, the flowers that Reed wears seem to resemble the white lily, which can symbolize rebirth and new beginnings. Notably, the life concept doesn't really apply to the original Reed. Even though she has the floral print on her turtleneck, she still resembles Ablana in other aspects of her design. Ablana represents the concept of death, and true to this concept, her originium arts are a form of necromancy. She also has multiple skeletal motifs in her design in the form of her staff and the armor-like pieces on her outfit. And her design uses cool colors like purple and indigo, where Reed's design has warmer colors like orange, red, and brown. Even her hair has a cooler tint to it than Reed does. Girl, you could have picked literally anything else for your codename. Why did you pick Necras? Oh my god! Speaking of colors, let's now go to the next section of this video. The usage of color and how different colors are employed in the character designs. The usage of color can help a character stand out, but in multiple cases it can also be used as a form of symbolism. The playable characters in particular have a dominant color in their designs. While some operators will inevitably share a dominant color for their design, after all there's only so many hues and tones you can mix and match, they each have a different set of secondary colors used to varying degrees in order to help them stand out. Golden Glow, for instance, has pink as the primary color in her design, as well as secondary notes of black, gold, and white. This sets her apart from some someone like Poziomka, whose design also heavily features pink, but also has red as the other dominant color in her design, with black and white as the secondary colors. You could also make the case for AF Yatla's signature color being pink because of her eyes and the ends of her hair, and the fact that pink is a prevalent undertone in her artworks and a recurring color in the artworks for most of her other skins. It's also the color that I've come to associate her with. But her color palette mainly uses white, red, black, and a muted shade of lavender. Some characters also have color schemes that follow different types of color wheel harmonies. Characters whose palettes use complementary colors, or colors on opposite sides of the color wheel, include Erato and Man from the Fog, whose designs include both green and red. Astronee's design features a triadic color wheel combination, or a color harmony that features 3 different colors situated 120 degrees from each other. In her case, her color palette primarily features blue, yellow, and red, which also happens to be the 3 primary colors. Characters with analogous color palettes, or a color in conjunction with the colors on either side of it, include Ernesto, Thorns, and Puzzle, while characters with monochromatic color palettes, or color palettes that use a single hue on the color wheel, include La Pluma, Kira, and Mantra. A substantial portion of the game's cast can also be linked together through the use of color in their designs, whether it's for narrative reasons or as an indicator that that character is part of a certain faction. The signature color of Rhodes Island as a group is blue, which can symbolize trust, loyalty, and responsibility. This color can be seen in the designs of many of the Rhodes Island personnel, and I think it tracks with the company's ethos as a pharmaceutical company, and a group that also strives for the betterment of the infected and the world. By contrast, the signature color of Reunion, one of the major antagonist factions in the game, is red, which can symbolize passion, energy, caution, and danger, which is very much in line with the social group that utilizes violence in their push for justice for the infected. Other factions who use color as a unifying factor and also to stand out from other groups include the Abyssal Hunters, who boast a largely monochromatic color scheme, as well as the Iberian Inquisition, whose uniforms are a combination of mauve, black, and gray. But going back to Rhodes Island, Calcit and Monster both stand out because while they are affiliated with the group, neither of them have blue in their design. Their color schemes are primarily green, a color that can be associated with health and vigor. And as it so happens, both of them are medic operators. There are also other exceptions to the rule when it comes to factions and groups. That is, members of certain groups may not adhere to one specific color. Some characters may also have contrasting color palettes for narrative reasons, or in the case of the Giallo cousins, as a form of irony. I find it interesting that Executor is the one with any substantial amount of color in his designs, especially when you consider that he acts and behaves purely on logic. Virtuoso's whole philosophy and her Originium arts both revolve around emotion and desire, but her color scheme is almost entirely monochromatic save for this little cravat thing. To go back to narrative use of color, I've also noticed that Texas and Lapland, specifically their alternate versions, have contrasting hues in their designs, and I think it's an interesting nod to their past and mostly one-sided rivalry. Ebenholz and Kaida also have a similar sort of narrative color palette contrast going on. In their case, their main colors are black and white respectively as a reflection of their names, the German words for ebony and chalk. And as an added anecdote, they're both distant relatives of the Lytanian Witch King. This dichotomy can also be seen with Teresa and Teresis, as well as Priestess and the Doctor, but we don't talk about Priestess. I'm pretty sure I've said this in the other videos in this series, but I will now once again drop a valuable tidbit of character design advice. Silhouettes are important. There are multiple things that can contribute to a character's silhouette, mainly shapes and how they're used. As it pertains to the cast of Arknights, you may have noticed that each character's silhouette uses a unique combination of shapes to help them stand out. Whether it's through their outfits, general build, antlers and horns and ears or hairstyles, or lack thereof. The shapes that make up a character's silhouette can also be formed by things such as clothing and armor, and the nature of those materials. What results are a wide variety of silhouettes that are easily distinguishable from one another. Basically, no two silhouettes are exactly the same. Let's first go back to Amiya, more specifically her ears. While Amiya is a goddess, Terra's rabbit-like race, her ears are markedly more pointed than the other bnuuys in the game. However, according to the wiki, this was actually an intentional creative decision as revealed by Amiya's character designer Wayat W, aka Hoshieve, who expressed on a podcast that the reason that Amiya's ears are as sharp as they are is because they are a reflection of her massive responsibilities. Also contributing to her distinct silhouette are her long ponytail undercoat. And in regards to rabbit ears, Ray and April are also standouts because unlike other goddesses, they both have one floppy ear. Mudrock, not counting her other outfits, wears a bulky suit which already sets her apart from most of the other operators. And because her silhouette has a simple and roundish shape to it, she also stands out when it comes to other armored operators. Ice Cream Queen Soda is one of multiple operators with a more streamlined silhouette, but she stands out because of the shape of her horns, her hair and her skirt, and the little bows at the back of her shoes. If you want to take it further, you could also say that the shape of her big freaking sword contributes to the shape of her silhouette. While the Sancta all sport wings and halos, the varying shapes of the aforementioned wings and halos help them all stand out from each other, even though you could still be able to tell who's who if you were to remove these. This is a distinction that can also be applied to Fallen Sancta. And since we're here, I should also give a mention to Aurela, an NPC who stands out as the only Sancta with a non-circular halo. These kinds of distinctions can also be seen among individuals of other races, furthering their individuality in the way of both silhouettes and overall design. Let's now look at operator rarities and the impact it has on a playable character's design. Playable operators are divided into different star ratings from 1 to 6, but I want to point out that lower rarity doesn't automatically equal bad design. The design of a 1-star operator appropriately befits their rarity the same way it does for a 6-star character. 1-star operators, the lowest rarity, are defined in the Arknights wiki as robots and non-combatants only counted on in emergency situations. That's not to say no particular care is given to their designs, or to the designs of the low-rarity characters. All of the robot units have distinct appearances, from the portable confession booth structure of Confess 47 to the sleek build of Fonor Zero to the artillery-like build of Justice Knight. Bonus points for the horsehead. Even You Official, the only non-robotic 1-star that isn't a collab character, has her own unique look right down to her pastel color palette, which is complemented by the black in her design. While 2-star operators are experienced Rhodes Island combatants, they have difficulty keeping up with other personnel for varying reasons. Then we have 3-star operators, new recruits who are also rear line and reserve units. Many of them wear a rank-and-file Rhodes Island uniform, but you can still see flashes of individuality, as is the case with operators like Durin, Cardigan, Melantha, Stewart, and Lava. The 4-star rarity is where the distinctions between characters truly start to show. 4 stars represent personnel who have unique abilities that set them apart from the rank-and-file operators, but may also include operators from civilian backgrounds and lack prior combat experience. These distinctions are also apparent in the alternate versions of existing operators, as in many cases their alternate designs show their growth as characters and can also show their accumulated experience as operators. Take for example Cruz and Feng, who both formally became Rhodes Island operators following years of strenuous training and practical experience. As such, their new designs are a significant departure from their original versions, which both portray them as rank-and-file members. The 5 and 6-star operators, who represent senior and professional personnel and distinguished, high-profile, and highly talented personnel respectively, typically tend to be more dripped out than the rest of the cast. But again, everyone's design is appropriately suited to their star rating. Now, there are a few more sections I want to talk about, but before we get to my personal thoughts and anecdotes, let's cut to a quick commercial break. You there. Yes, you. Do you have a shiny new character that you're excited to put in your current project, but know next to nothing about them or don't know where to start? Don't worry, learning more about your characters is just one click away with Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes on topics that include illustration, design, photography, video, and more. These classes are taught by folks who represent the top of their creative disciplines, so you can level up in your creative journey worry-free. You'll also get curated sequences of classes to guide you towards your goals, an active community of fellow creators to give you feedback, and certificates and badges to help you celebrate your accomplishments. If you want to get inspired, learn new skills, and make new creative discoveries, look no further than Skillshare. But what kinds of classes can you find on the platform? I've mentioned this class in a previous video, but the lessons I've taken away from it have been very helpful in my writing adventures. And that class is Writing Fiction: 5 Exercises to Craft a Compelling Plot by Lisa Ko, author of the contemporary fiction novel The Leavers. In this class, you'll get 5 different exercises regarding a plot for your story, character development, and more. These exercises include my personal favorite of the bunch, making a list of 10 facts about your character. And the best part is, you can put just about anything and everything on that list. I've put this to use with multiple projects, and it's been very insightful in helping me with writing from their perspectives. But wait, there's more! If you join Skillshare using the link in the description, you'll get your first month free! Yes, you heard that right. The first month is free, so don't miss this special opportunity to level up your skills. At a discount! Thank you to the folks at Skillshare for sponsoring this video. And speaking of the video, let's get right back to the topic. Let's now get to the last couple of segments for this video. And the first is about my own observations and other things that I personally enjoy, along with other things I couldn't get to in the previous sections. After all, it's not an episode of Chamomile yaps about character designs without my personal anecdotes. To start, I think there's great attention to detail when it comes to a number of the playable characters. The train of Haruka's dress and her earrings are both nice nods to the fact that she's based on the comet goldfish. And she also has a goldfish charm on her staff too. Similarly, I've noticed that the ruffles on the dresses of both Benna and the OG Ea resemble sheep's wool, which fits with the fact that they're both Capricorn, Terra's goat/sheep-like race. The color of Record Keeper's outer robe seemed to bear resemblance to that of the Lanchan, the closed round colored robe worn mostly by students and scholars. Personally, I think it would track though, since he is responsible for documenting the martial arts used by Yanni's soldiers. Dusk's sword resembles the sword of Gul'jan, a bronze double-edged straight sword known for, among other things, its resistance to tarnish despite being more than 2,000 years old. In terms of NPCs, Jez's tail fins seem to resemble slips of paper, which I think is a really nice detail considering that she was the soy sibling who represented calligraphy. Something that I also like is the fact that there are varying body types among the playable characters and the NPCs. This variation extends from the smaller characters such as the Durins to the taller characters like Chongyue and Sancta Mixaparato, who seems to have the same knack for picking up peculiar codenames as Fiammetta, because what do you mean this dude's codename is the Holy Blender? This variation also extends to the non-humanoid characters such as the robot operators and the anthropomorphic characters. Not only that, there are also multiple characters with physical disabilities including Vulcan and Harold, who both use prosthetic legs, as well as Aelter who uses a hearing aid because of the side effects of her neuropathy. And I think it's really cool that we have a playable wheelchair user in the form of Lemuel. While I think it's also cool that there are varying skin tones among the humanoid characters, that doesn't change the fact that it's not very well executed in some cases. Take, for example, Gracebearer. Why is she gray? Admittedly, Radian's design initially threw me off, primarily because the wings on her head have a similar shape to Irene's. Then again, so do Passengers, but this is balanced out by the rest of her design and the mechanical pair of arms that she has on her back. And I love the fact that she's a reference to the birds with arms meme. Walter's design has grown on me substantially since she was initially announced for the CN server, but I'm still not quite over the fact that it's incredibly top-heavy. Yes, it gives her a distinct silhouette, but I personally feel like the bottom half of her outfit leaves something to be desired because of how much is going on in the top half. Something that I wish we also got was Logos' NPC design being his playable one as well, but you know what? It is what it is. It is what it is. Also, this isn't really a gripe, but after more than 3 years, I still can't tell if Fiammetta's hair is supposed to be pink or white at the roots. And then there is the, undoubtedly, single biggest mystery of the entire game, and that's the fact that the wiki says Vigil's Ahoge is the longest one of every playable character. Lumens is right there! Okay, I think I've calmed down now. I think. Lastly, I'll briefly talk about some operators that, as of writing, haven't been released in the global server yet, but have already caught my interest and are just some of the many non-global operators that us Toktas can look forward to over the next few months. Let's start with the alternate versions of Praminix and Silver Ash. Both of them have color schemes that differ greatly from the monochrome palettes of their original versions, and while they both use a combination of blue, gold, white, and black, their designs use a combination of these colors that's unique to them. I've also noticed that they have scarf/shawl-like elements in their design, which in my opinion can serve as another element that connects the two design-wise. I also like how they both have elements from their original designs that were carried over to their alternate ones, namely Silver Ash's giant verstole and Praminix's bell. Or, in this case, bells. As an aside, 2 of the 3 Silver Ash siblings getting alternate versions at the same time was certainly not on my bingo card. And neither was Ashtini getting an alternate version. I like that she kept the goggles and the bird motifs, though I think the latter of which is a nod to the fact that she's based on the common house martin. However, she now has star motifs in her design, which my opinion helps to connect her to her sister. She looks like she's ready to show the world the power of technology. Wait, if we're getting Elena too, does this open up the possibility of Astesia too? Please, Hypergriff, please! Now let's go to Hadia. Finally, we have an Oryx operator. The orange in her gloves and coat adds a nice pop of color to her black and white color scheme. Her ears, horns, and coat give her a unique silhouette, not including the axe and sword she has in her base artwork, and considering she apparently has an interest in combat, her outfit seems like it'd be great to move around in. Now let's go to Skybox. He's an iguana! The blue and grayish-brown complement each other nicely, and I've noticed that he's wearing full protective gear along with what I'm assuming is a makeshift respirator thing. This tracks though, considering he's part of a Colombian governmental agency that regulates the manufacture and import of arts and originium devices. And as I'm sure we all know, you're gonna need full protection before going anywhere near originium. Next up is Nasty. She has a very earthy vibe in her color palette that I enjoy, and I think these branch-looking projections on her left give her an interesting silhouette. With the exception of this bit of green cloth, her color scheme is also more muted, and I think this is a good reflection of her serious personality. Special mention to the rolled-up pant leg and the fact that she wears her coat on one sleeve. Then there's Wang, who was recently announced during the annual Lunar New Year livestream and will be the limited 6.5 anniversary operator for Global. Hello, monochrome color palette. While his color scheme bears resemblance to Chongyue's, it's the usage of black, white, and gold that sets the two of them apart. And I like how in Wang's case, the black and white alternates for both his eyes and his hands. Their silhouettes are also different. Where Chongyue's is more streamlined, Wang's has more bulk to it, especially with the shape of his hair and that gargantuan tail. Something I saw on the wiki that I think is worth mentioning is that Wang's name can be connected to the 15th day of the Chinese calendar, Wangri, and when that's paired with Shuo, which is also Chongyue's real name, it becomes Shuo Wangyue, the name of the synodic month, the average period of the moon's orbit with respect to the line joining Earth and the Sun. The codename of the new haunts, Taraxacum, is actually a reference to the genus of plants that include dandelions, and his staff seems to bear resemblance to the seed head of a dandelion. I'm also fond of the white/blue color combination that he has and the softer look of his color palette. Also, what are those? Ju's design is also very interesting because while he seems to have a bionic body like Tin Man, he's actually a Faranmut posing as a craftsman. His playable design is very reminiscent of an infantry soldier, and he even has the bow and arrows to match. And I also think the wide brim of the hat-like piece he has helps to balance everything out. Last but not least, we have Chen 3. Yes, you heard that correctly. Chen 3. I was very shocked when I saw this because I thought we'd only be getting the Holiday as Chen's alternate version, but I guess I was wrong. I can't really complain though, even though I can personally think of a few other operators who are equally deserving of this treatment. And honestly, there are so many things that I love about this design. From the mostly black outfit to the fringe-looking things on the sides, the puffy sleeves, the boots, and the shade of blue in her hair providing a sharp contrast to the red and black color palette. Then there's the slug belt, even though I'm not sure how this would work. But you know what? There are some things you just have to do for the aesthetic. Additionally, one person on Twitter pointed out that Chen 3 is carrying a knife that was used to scrape away mistakes written on bamboo slips. In some cases, these knives were a symbol of office for officials, as it indicated their power to amend and change records and edicts. So I'm curious to know if this is the reason why she has it. Either way, I find it a very interesting addition. So that concludes my newest character design yapping session. This was a fun one to write about, but also very challenging because there's just so much to get through, including the fact that the game has such a large cast. Not to mention the fact that this turned out to be much longer than I expected it to be. 6,137 words. That's more than 20 minutes of yapping. I am going insane. But considering the subject material, it was absolutely worth it. Again, I am aware that I missed a significant portion of the cast, so I want to individually talk about all of the playable character designs in a series of separate videos, and maybe talk about NPCs that I'd like to see become playable. I'm also planning to do the former with some other games, and one of my goals for this year is to yap about the stuff that I want to talk about, not just the things I think will appease the algorithm gods. So I really want to start that series soon. Let's just hope I can get over my debilitating self-doubt. For now though, I leave you with apple pie. Anyway, that is going to do it for this video. If you like this video and you want to see more from me, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more art-related videos and shenanigans. If you want to support me further, make sure to check out my webcomic and social media accounts, along with my Ko-fi and Etsy shop, and feel free to join my YouTube membership and my Patreon for more exclusive goods and content. The links to all of these are in the description. Lastly, if you made it this far, leave a rabbit emoji in the comment section below. And make sure to keep things civil in the comments, or I will put a whoopee cushion in your chair when you least expect it. And yeah, that's about everything. Thanks for watching.